few moments.
Whoa. Oh, wow. Welcome back, spiritual sirens. Gotta bring them back with another banger. It's your girl, Faith. We are live in action, back from church. Bang, bang. Bang, bang. You know what I'm saying? It's so crazy because the sermon that we were actually talking about in church today, literally, oh yeah, social size on the hair. We're gonna actually add this video because I forgot to insert in the last one.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing? It's your girl Faith at Soul Child Styles LLC. Just wanted to let you guys know that we have some March deals going on. Here you can see where my page is in my link tree, and from there you can also access my booking page. And if you go on my Instagram page and my highlights, I'll have all my March deals. So
and we're back. But yeah, so like literally what the sermon was about to say is something that I honestly just feel like I closed a chapter of, right? Shame should be having folks chokehold, not the way you like it. But yeah, today that's why the caption of this video is oh my gosh, y'all, I'm all over the place, but I just had a really good sermon. Like it just wow. But you know, Pastor Stacey, per use, eating them up, she was talking about how a lot of times we try to allow our shame to cover us from God out of fear. But God has a covering for everything that you've been through. And when I say that, I mean he will use everything that you've been through for your good. The example that she used was in the Old Testament when but you have to really read this with context, because a lot of people misinterpret this scripture because they don't read it with context. But she was talking about how during a certain time period, and there's like a lot of sinful stuff going on, that God put in the Bible that you should, the women at the time, now, trigger warning, because y'all know I am a survivor of sexual assault myself, so please understand when I say we are going to break this down with context. So before I even really get into it and start getting people, at the time, there was a lot of things going on, and especially women did not have, you know, basic rights that we would have today. So especially when a woman had been like defiled or, you know, sexually assaulted in some manner, and it were to be something that she talked about and were to be made known, it would be hard for her because of that shame, because of the shame that people would project onto her, not because of her sin, but the sin of someone else against her. She would not be able to remarry again or have any type of real protection. And to be a woman, a grown woman, without the protection of your family and without protection of a man at that time would mean ultimate dissolution. So he said that the woman should go and marry that person that sexually assaulted her, but not in the sense of torment for her, but because of that situation, of the decisions of that person, he should not be able to run away from accountability and should be then tied to her in order to, not penance per se, but penance for his crimes and his sins against her and sins against God. And also because then she would have someone to protect her, because outside of that person is like, and obviously not the greatest example, but like that's why it's so important to read with context and also empathize, because realistically, and that's, I hate that was even the situation that was used, but I did like that example only because of the fact that she wasn't afraid to speak on it, because this is something that I know a lot of women deal with. And but not in just like that in general, but the shame that comes after that is something that's like, obviously that would never fly now. You know how things are now. Obviously, God wouldn't even like, but like realistically, the shame, not even because you did anything, but the shame that comes after a situation like that would be something that you would deem as like something that you could never come back from. A lot of people end their lives after shame like that. And it's like, even after the deed has been done, what we hold on to is the shame of that experience. And a lot of times, I know for me personally, that shame drove me to do a lot of shit that did not really align with me and who I am as a person, and who God calls me to be, and how God calls me to present myself in the world for his glory. And a lot of times, and that's just one example, but a very heart-wrenching example to really get down to the point, because a lot of things that we go through in life, we end up attaching this spirit of shame to ourselves when we have nothing to be ashamed about. She also tied it back to the story of Eve and Adam. And when Eve had talked to the serpent, and then she had actually experienced what he had lured her into, she then felt shame when she was aware that she was naked. Because they really, not like they didn't know, but they didn't feel any shame because God covered them from that. God had his covering on them. But she chose what she chose. You know what I'm saying? I have opinions on that, but that's not what we're getting into. She chose what she chose, all right? She was shameful because of it. And because she didn't want to feel like the only one with that shame, because it's only her, Adam, the serpent, and God, of course she's going to go Adam, switch up the story a little bit so that she feels like she's not ashamed of the sin that she was lured into on purpose by the serpent. But like having that knowledge then is just like, what am I supposed to do? I'm out here butt naked. You're out here butt naked, but you don't even realize you're butt naked. But I'm only worried that, because I wasn't worried about being butt naked before. But all of a sudden I got to put fig leaves on my little boobies and my little genitals, because I was over here doing stuff I had no business doing. And that's what sin does. And I know it's a word that we hate. Like even me, like I'm over here all over the place because it's something that's hard to talk about. It really is, especially how we perceive sin and shame today because of all the societal constructs and all this, that, and the other. And it's really all bullshit. Don't get me wrong. Like the whole point of the initial response of shame is conviction. It's not just supposed to be, oh, da da da, but a lot of times like we feel conviction and we turn it into shame instead of using it as like a signal that, oh, maybe something's not right here. You understand what I'm saying? So a lot of times we allow our shame to misguide us into thinking that we have to run away from God, when all that conviction is supposed to do is to signal that you're drawing further away from God, and a signal to check in with him to see if there's something that you need to change. But a lot of times we let stress and the opinions of other people drive us to shame, and then drive us towards closer and closer towards the darkness. And instead of learning how to love yourself through that darkness, we allow shame to develop this self-hatred. And when you don't fully love yourself, how can you expect God to fully love you? If there are parts of yourself that you shy away from, how we, as at least as humans in our human minds, we're like, how do we expect God to love us? But in the reality of it all is God loves us through all our shame, all of the things that we think are so horrible and irredeemable about ourselves is the things that he's using for our good to show other people that that's just not true, my love. Just because you go through certain things and you deal with certain issues and like vices and things that we oftentimes feel like we have to latch on to survive in this sick ass world, we forget that we need to learn, just like God, to use everything for our good, to learn that everything that we deal with is not happening to us, but happening for us and happening for others through us. Because a lot of times, like, we inadvertently ask God, when we come to him, to use us to show ourselves first, that we are who we believe he thinks we are, reflection of him. But it's hard to think of yourself as a reflection of God when you see the human mistakes that you make sometimes on a day-to-day basis. So we then believe that means that we're supposed to go and hide away from God until we're perfect and ready again to come back in his presence, when that's just not true. If we had to be perfect to be around God, what's the point of him? What's the point of him being an example of that perfectionism, or not perfectionism, but perfection? All things, we're not all knowing, but because we have him within us, we know. If that makes sense? Like, we are called to strive every day to be more and more like God, to grow a likeness with God. And that doesn't mean that you're supposed to use your sin or you being human to justify the fucked up things that you know you should not be doing. No, it simply means you're always supposed to put your best foot forward. That's the whole point. Because regardless of what you want to do, the lessons that God requires us to learn in the time periods that he has called us to, we're going to learn. How we learn those lessons, however, are up to us. So I'm not saying that we do things that then mean that we're deserving of the pain and the shame that comes with, like, as consequence of certain behavior. No, what I'm saying is you're supposed to make mistakes. You're supposed to fuck up. Because if you don't, what would be the point of you calling to God for answers? Like, what would be the point of you talking to God, if you taking God's advice, if you were just like, if you had all the answers, if you could figure it out by going into a corner or searching some shit up? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not how it's supposed to work. The whole point of having a guide is for guidance. But shame can make us believe that we have to turn to our egos for comfort, because it's hard for God to find you in your familiar spaces that you don't want to leave. You know what I'm saying? Like, even me, I had to take a little club break because I was getting a little beside myself. I can't even lie. And because I'm at a point where I'm so one with myself and one with my spirit and one with God, and understanding his voice clearer day by day, it's like I'm able to really understand when things are not aligning with me and when I feel certain spirits trying to attach themselves to me. Because we battle not against flesh and blood, but of principles and entities of the darkness. But finding unity with yourself, with your light and your dark, helps you to learn to know when things are not aligning or when things are aligning too much with either side. It's hard to understand how to control, and not control, but work with your darker sides to create balance and to create understanding within self, and then create understanding of other people, because everyone has a light and a dark that they battle with. So the more that we understand ourselves, the more we understand God, and the more we understand other people that we have to encounter in our physical world, as well as spirits. Because as I said, we battle not against flesh and blood. So if we're battling against spirits, we're battling with spirits of envy, spirits of lust, spirits of limerence, spirits of shame, you're literally battling spirits all day, spirits that attach themselves onto people, because you have to understand that there's a physical and a spiritual in this world. whether you want to acknowledge it or not. You think you're just all of a sudden having these mood swings and stuff for nothing. Like, yes, your physical explanation is that you have mental health disorders. Yes, totally valid, but that is your physical. What now aligns with your spiritual to cause your physical? Because everything happens, everything manifests in the spiritual first. So with that being said, what is going on in your spiritual life to cause these issues in your physical? Because me personally, I can't speak for anyone else, but I know I was diagnosed with severe depression in high school. I was on Lexapro, I was on antidepressants for a couple months. Like I legit literally, like, people be thinking I became, I'm like, no, check my medical records. Check my medical records, Bookie. Like, for real, like, I still deal with a lot of stuff in my head. But understanding that those issues that are there because of things that I've experienced or just because of how my brain is chemically wired are also influenced and heightened by things that first happened in the spiritual. Like, things like evil eye, right? You could be having a good day, being fine, and like you might, you might be someone that's in the public eye, so you're posting certain content a little bit more, or you just have like a group of people or person that just doesn't fuck with you. Cool. Then all of a sudden you start feeling these feelings of shame and that maybe I'm doing too much, or maybe people don't actually value me and who I am as a person, or just feelings that you did not feel before. Maybe you interacted with someone and then you started feeling all these feelings that you did not feel before. There's a reason for that, beloved. And I'm not saying that, like, a lot of times evil eye, negative energy is not something that people purposely put out, but things that they're going on with internally. They see that light, or they see something, or they assume something about you that they're not happy with within themselves, then they then project that onto you. So not all shame is your shame. That's another big thing. A lot of times people project the shame of their sin onto you because they feel like your light exposes that within themselves. And a lot of times people can end up taking it to farthest lengths simply because they feel that you could expose that, your light could expose that darkness within them, instead of seeing that your light exposed that darkness for them to then deal with it internally. No. But that's why you have to learn how to protect yourself spiritually and physically. Physically, it might look like removing yourself from certain situations that you weren't supposed to be in, certain places that you've simply outgrown. So a lot of times when you outgrow a place, certain things just start happening where it's just like, I'm no longer comfortable here. Like me. It's another reason I'm leaving the club situation for a little bit. Or I'm just going to be really picky about going to the club. Because it's just, the last time I went out, it's just, yeah, certain things threw me off. Everything worked out for my good in the end. But it's just, I could feel. When you feel, confirmation. When you feel, listen to that feeling, bro. Whether it be, sometimes like that conviction that you feel, bro, it is simply a warning to remove yourself or change something before actual darkness can start creeping into your center, start creeping into your auric field. Because a lot of times, before shit hits the fan, God will give us signs, warnings. But a lot of times, because we have like a certain type of shame, whether it be a shame about our relationship with God and what we feel and how we feel like we connect with him and how we might think other people might view that about us. Because you feel like, oh, well, if I am, saying I'm one with God, and I got to live a certain way, I got to look a certain way. When in reality, God is using your story to show people that regardless of what you go through, what you got going on, or who you choose to be, as long as you are knowingly doing what he calls you to do, listening to his voice when it comes to your decisions and how you treat other people, centering yourself so you don't fall into the traps of your ego that might mislead you, and just staying focused on what you're doing and your impact. How your life may look is nobody's business but your own. How people feel about your life and the way it looks is nobody's business but you and God. And that's something that I literally just had to start learning, because I be popping my shit on here. I be popping my shit. Okay? I be popping my shit. Y'all see me pop my shit all the time. And I've just learned how to become so confident in myself, and regardless of how other people feel and what other people think, because at the end of the day, God called me to be a beacon of light for his glory. If you have a problem with me, take it up with the good Lord. Maybe, and that's not even like a cocky way, but like literally, if you have a problem with me, ask yourself why. Because I don't do anything. I mind my business. If something I've said or something or just me being who I am triggers you, ask yourself why. Because I know a lot of people are triggered by me because they're scared to be their authentic self. And I live my truth freely and comfortably. I don't care about anyone's opinion about me at all. Because at the end of the day, I'm not doing this for y'all. I'm doing this because God calls me to do this. You think I want to be sitting on here all the time? Like, this takes a lot of work. This takes a lot of work. And it's because I made a promise to myself that I will not shame myself into silence. Like, when I was younger, I had to create my own voice because so much shame from the shit that I went through caused me to be quiet. And I don't do that anymore. And I'm so grateful that God has brought me from those spaces and used them for my good, because now I can speak to people from all walks of life. It doesn't matter who you are, what you go through, and where you come from. You are valued just the same. But not everybody has the same value. But everybody that God brings into your life does not add the same value to you. Okay? That's why it's so important to be mindful to not let your shame mess up or cause you to project onto other people, because you could be projecting onto people that God has brought into your life to change your perception and change how you view things so that you can get what you desire and what you deserve. But a lot of times we mess up relationships and situations with people that could have brought us higher because of our egos. So check your ego this week. Check that shame. Ask yourself, why do I feel shame? Why do I care about people's opinion about myself? Why? Literally, why? In this day and age, ain't that. But why? Be yourself. Do not be scared to be yourself because you think God will love you any less. If there are parts of yourself that you're not all the way happy with, then just work on it. But don't allow that to be a blockage between your relationship with God and the beautiful relationships you create with people he's called into your life. Be amazing. Don't be scared to be amazing. And if there are people that make you feel weird for being comfortable being your amazing self, maybe that should signify that not everybody appreciates your light in your group or wherever you are. And maybe that means you gotta make some decisions about that. It happens. But never let anyone else's shame or your shame hide you from what you deserve or what you want in this life. You deserve the best. I love you guys and have a great week.